Marcus Thompson sat alone at the wooden table in the far corner of the university library. The afternoon sun came through the tall windows, making bright squares on the floor. Around him, other students whispered about their homework and typed on their laptops. But Marcus worked in complete silence. He was different from the other students in many ways. At 25 years old, he was older than most of them. While they rushed between classes looking stressed and tired, Marcus walked slowly and calmly through the hallways. His posture was perfectly straight, like a soldier standing at attention. When people looked at him, they saw a tall, lean black man who always sat alone. Marcus opened his calculus book to chapter 12. The math problems looked hard to most people, but not to him. He had learned to focus his mind during his time in the Marines. While other students struggled with basic algebra, Marcus solved complex equations without breaking a sweat. His pencil moved across the paper in steady, controlled strokes. "Hey, can I sit here?" asked a young woman with blonde hair. She pointed to the empty chair across from Marcus. All the other tables were full of students. Marcus looked up from his book. "Sure," he said quietly. "I don't mind." The woman sat down and pulled out her chemistry textbook. She tried to start a conversation. "That math looks really hard. Are you in advanced calculus?" "Yes," Marcus answered with a small nod. He wasn't rude, but he didn't say much more. This happened often. Students would try to talk to him, but Marcus kept to himself. It wasn't because he didn't like people. He just had learned to be careful about getting too close to others. After an hour, the woman packed up her books and left. Marcus continued working on his homework. The library became quieter as the day went on. Most students had gone back to their dorms or apartments. Marcus liked this time of day. The peace reminded him of early mornings in the desert, before the heat and danger of the day began. Marcus closed his calculus book and opened his engineering textbook. This was his favorite subject. He dreamed of building bridges and designing buildings that would help people. In Afghanistan, he had seen too many things destroyed by war. Now he wanted to create something that would last, something that would make the world better. As he read about structural engineering, Marcus's mind wandered for a moment. He remembered his first day at the university. The admissions officer had looked surprised when Marcus walked into her office. She probably expected someone younger, someone who looked more like a typical college student. When she saw his military records and test scores, her surprise turned to respect. "You could get into any engineering program in the country," she had told him. "Why did you choose our school?" Marcus had given a simple answer: "I want to stay close to home. My mother lives here." What he didn't say was that after 3 tours of duty overseas, he needed to be somewhere familiar, somewhere safe. The clock on the library wall showed 6 o'clock. Marcus packed his books into his black backpack. Each book went in its proper place. His pencils went into a small case. His notebook went into the front pocket. Everything had to be organized and neat. This was a habit from the military that Marcus had never lost. He stood up and slung his backpack over his shoulder. The library was almost empty now. Only a few students sat at the computers, working on last-minute projects. Marcus walked toward the exit, his footsteps quiet on the carpeted floor. Outside, the campus was beautiful in the evening light. Trees lined the walkways, their leaves turning colors. Students sat on benches, talking and laughing with their friends. Marcus walked past them all, heading toward the parking lot where his car waited. Nobody looked at him twice. Nobody suspected that the quiet student with the engineering books was also a trained fighter. In his backpack, next to his calculus homework, Marcus carried something most people didn't know about: a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that he had earned during his military service. As Marcus walked across the campus, he enjoyed the peaceful moment. The war was behind him now. His fighting days were over. Here at the university, he was just another student working toward a better future. He had no idea that in just a few minutes, his peaceful evening was about to change forever. Marcus walked slowly across the campus toward the student parking lot. The sun was getting low in the sky, painting everything in warm orange and red colors. Most students had already gone home or back to their dorms. The parking lot looked almost empty, with only a few cars scattered around the big space. Marcus liked this time of day. The campus felt peaceful and quiet. He could hear birds singing in the trees and the distant sound of traffic from the main road. It reminded him of sunset back home when he was a child, playing in his mother's backyard until she called him inside for dinner. His car was a small blue Honda Civic. It wasn't fancy or expensive, but it was reliable. Marcus had bought it with money he saved during his time in the Marines. The car had over 100,000 miles on it, but Marcus took good care of it. Every weekend, he washed it and checked the oil. His military training had taught him to maintain his equipment properly. As Marcus got closer to his car, he heard something that made him stop walking. It was the sound of motorcycle engines, loud and powerful. The noise echoed between the buildings, getting louder and louder. Marcus turned to see where the sound was coming from. 5 motorcycles roared into the parking lot. They were big Harley-Davidson bikes, black and chrome shining in the evening light. The riders wore leather jackets and had long hair flowing behind them. Their motorcycles made so much noise that Marcus could feel the vibrations in his chest. The bikers rode in a line, like a parade. But this wasn't a friendly parade. Marcus could see the way they looked around the parking lot, like they owned it. Their faces were hard and mean. Some of them had tattoos covering their arms. Others had beards that hadn't been trimmed in months. Marcus kept walking toward his car, but more slowly now. His military training automatically kicked in. He started paying attention to everything around him. How many men were there? 5. Where were the exits? The main entrance behind the bikers, and a smaller gate on the far side of the lot. Were there any other people around? No, the parking lot was empty except for him and the bikers. The lead biker was a big man with a gray beard. His leather jacket had patches sewn onto it, and Marcus could see words like Iron Wolves written across the back. The man's arms were thick and muscular, covered in tattoos. A chain hung from his belt, and his boots were heavy black leather. The bikers parked their motorcycles in a line, blocking the main exit from the parking lot. They didn't turn off their engines right away. Instead, they sat on their bikes, revving the motors and looking around. The leader pointed at Marcus and said something to the others. Marcus couldn't hear the words over the noise of the engines, but he could see them all turning to stare at him. Marcus continued walking toward his car, trying to act normal. But inside, his senses were on high alert. He had been in dangerous situations before, in places much more dangerous than a college parking lot. But somehow, this felt different. In Afghanistan, he had been a soldier fighting other soldiers. Here, he was just a student trying to get to his car. The bikers finally turned off their engines. The sudden silence felt strange after all the noise. Marcus could hear his own footsteps on the asphalt and the sound of his heart beating a little faster than normal. He reached into his pocket for his car keys, his fingers closing around the small metal objects. That's when the trouble began. The leader of the bikers swung his leg over his motorcycle and stood up. He was even bigger than Marcus had thought, probably 6 feet tall and weighing at least 250 pounds. The man looked directly at Marcus and started walking toward him. The other 4 bikers got off their motorcycles too and followed their leader. Marcus stopped walking. He was still about 20 feet away from his car, but the bikers were moving to block his path. Marcus had seen this kind of situation before. These men were looking for trouble, and they had decided that he was going to be their target. "Hey," the leader called out in a loud, rough voice. "Hey, you." Marcus turned to face the bikers, but he didn't answer. His hands hung loose at his sides, and his feet were slightly apart, giving him good balance. To anyone watching, he might have looked nervous or scared. But Marcus wasn't scared. He was thinking, calculating, preparing. The 5 bikers spread out as they got closer, forming a half circle around Marcus. Their boots made heavy sounds on the asphalt. Some of them were smiling, but not in a friendly way. These were the kind of smiles that meant trouble was coming. Marcus stood perfectly still, watching them approach. The peaceful evening was over. Something bad was about to happen, and Marcus found himself right in the middle of it. Marcus stood very still as the 5 bikers walked toward him. He kept his hands where they could see them, open and relaxed. This was something he had learned in the Marines. Never make sudden movements that might make a bad situation worse. His breathing stayed calm and steady, even though his heart was beating faster. The leader of the bikers stopped about 10 feet away from Marcus. Up close, the man looked even more dangerous. His face was rough and weathered, like old leather left in the sun. A scar ran from his left ear down to his chin. His eyes were small and mean, like a pig's eyes. When he smiled, Marcus could see that some of his teeth were missing. "Well, the leader said in a voice like gravel. "What do we have here?" He looked Marcus up and down, taking in his neat clothes and the backpack full of books. "Looks like we got ourselves a college boy." The other bikers spread out around Marcus, forming a circle. Marcus noticed everything about them. The second man was tall and thin, with spider web tattoos covering his neck. The third was shorter but very muscular, with arms like tree trunks. The fourth had long dirty hair and gaps in his teeth. The fifth was the youngest, maybe in his 20s, trying to look tough like the others. Marcus didn't turn his head to look at each of them. Instead, he used his peripheral vision, a skill he had learned in combat. He could see all of them without taking his eyes off the leader. This way, no one could surprise him by attacking from the side. "I don't want any trouble," Marcus said in a clear, steady voice. "I'm just trying to get to my car so I can go home." The leader laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. It was the kind of laugh that bullies make when they find someone to pick on. "You don't want trouble," he repeated. "Well, that's too bad, boy, because trouble just found you." Marcus noticed the way the man said "boy." It wasn't said in a friendly way. It was said with hate, meant to make Marcus feel small and powerless. Marcus had heard that word before, used the same way, and it always made his jaw tighten. But he didn't let his anger show on his face. "Look," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm. "I don't know what this is about, but I haven't done anything to you or your friends. Can't we just let this go?" The thin biker with the spider tattoos spoke up. "Yeah, right. You college kids think you're so much better than us working people, coming into our town, acting all smart with your fancy books and your degrees." "This is our parking lot now," said the muscular one with tree trunk arms, "and we don't like sharing with people like you." Marcus understood now. This wasn't about anything he had done. This was about who he was. A young black man with books, someone who looked different from them. These men saw him as a threat to their way of life, even though Marcus had never met them before. The leader stepped closer to Marcus. Now he was only about 5 feet away. Marcus could smell cigarettes and beer on the man's breath. "My name's Snake," the leader said, "and these are my boys. We ride together, we fight together, and we don't like outsiders messing with our territory." "I understand," Marcus said, "but this is a public parking lot. I'm a student here. I have every right to be here." Snake's face got red with anger. "Rights?" He spat. "You think you got rights? Let me show you what rights you got around here." Without warning, Snake pushed Marcus hard in the chest with both hands. It was a strong push, meant to knock Marcus backward and make him fall. But Marcus didn't fall. He barely moved at all. His feet stayed planted on the ground like he was a tree with deep roots. Snake looked surprised. He had expected Marcus to stumble backward, maybe fall down, maybe start begging. Instead, Marcus stood exactly where he had been standing before, looking calm and unimpressed. "That's interesting," Snake said slowly. He looked at his friends, who were also staring at Marcus with confused expressions. "Usually people move when I push them." Marcus said nothing. He just stood there, waiting to see what would happen next. His military training told him to stay alert but not aggressive. Let them make the next move. Let them show their intentions clearly. The other bikers moved closer, tightening the circle around Marcus. They were like wolves surrounding their prey, getting ready for the attack. But Marcus wasn't prey. He was something else entirely, something they didn't understand yet. Snake cracked his knuckles and grinned his gap-toothed grin. "I think this college boy needs to learn some manners," he said to his friends. "What do you think, boys? Should we teach him how to show proper respect to his elders?" The bikers laughed and nodded. They were enjoying this, thinking they had found an easy target. They had no idea what they were about to face. The 5 bikers looked at Marcus like he was a wounded animal that couldn't fight back. They saw exactly what they expected to see, a scared college student who would give up without a real fight. Snake smiled his ugly smile and rolled up his sleeves, showing off more tattoos on his thick arms. "Look at him, boys," Snake said to his friends, standing there all quiet and polite. "I bet he's never been in a real fight in his whole life. Probably runs to his mommy when someone says mean words to him." The bikers laughed like this was the funniest joke they had ever heard. The tall one with spider tattoos pulled out a heavy chain from his pocket and wrapped it around his fist. The muscular one cracked his knuckles so loud it sounded like breaking sticks. The one with long dirty hair spat on the ground near Marcus's feet. "Please," Snake said in a fake baby voice. "Please don't hurt me, mister. I just want to go home to my books and my safe little dorm room." The other bikers burst into laughter again, slapping each other on the back. What the bikers didn't see was the way Marcus's eyes moved. He wasn't looking at their faces or listening to their words. Instead, he was studying how they stood, how they moved, where they kept their hands. His brain was working like a computer, collecting information and making plans. Marcus noticed that Snake favored his right side, probably from an old injury. The thin biker with the chain held it wrong. He would hurt himself if he tried to swing it. The muscular one was strong but slow, breathing hard just from walking. The one with long hair kept shifting his weight from foot to foot, nervous and unpredictable. The youngest biker stayed in the back, not really wanting to be part of this. Marcus's breathing stayed calm and steady. In Afghanistan, he had learned to control his fear and use it to stay alert. Fear could keep you alive if you didn't let it control you. His heart was beating fast, but his hands weren't shaking. His muscles felt loose and ready, like a cat about to jump. "You know what I think?" Snake said, stepping even closer to Marcus. "I think you're one of those scholarship kids. Got into college because they felt sorry for you. Am I right?" Marcus didn't answer. He had learned long ago that some people would always see him as different, as less than them. In the military, he had proved himself over and over, but there were always a few soldiers who couldn't accept him as an equal. These bikers were just like those soldiers. Angry, ignorant, and dangerous. Snake grabbed Marcus by the front of his shirt and pulled him closer. Marcus could feel the man's hot breath on his face. "I'm talking to you, boy. When someone asks you a question, you answer." The other bikers moved closer, excited to see their leader take control. They thought this was how it would go. Snake would push the college kid around, maybe throw a few punches, and the kid would run away crying. Then they could ride off feeling tough and proud. But Marcus didn't look scared. He looked calm, too calm. His dark eyes met Snake's angry ones without blinking. There was something in those eyes that made Snake feel uncomfortable, though he couldn't say what it was. "Let me go," Marcus said quietly. "This doesn't have to happen." Snake tightened his grip on Marcus's shirt. "Oh, but it does have to happen. See, you walked into our territory. You disrespected us just by being here. And now you're gonna pay for that." The bikers formed a tighter circle around Marcus and Snake. They were ready to watch their leader beat up the college student. Some of them pulled out their phones to record it. They thought this would be funny to watch later. Marcus shifted his weight slightly, almost invisible to anyone not trained to notice such things. His feet moved just a few inches, but now he was in a better position. His center of gravity was lower. His balance was perfect. "Last chance," Marcus said in the same quiet voice. "Walk away now, and nobody gets hurt." Snake laughed so hard he started coughing. "Nobody gets hurt. You're about to get hurt real bad, college boy, and there ain't nothing you can do about it." The biker raised his fist, getting ready to punch Marcus in the face. He was sure this would be easy. He outweighed Marcus by at least 50 pounds. He had been in dozens of bar fights. He had brass knuckles in his other hand, ready to use if the kid tried to fight back. What Snake didn't know was that Marcus had been trained by the best fighters in the world. He didn't know that Marcus had survived 3 tours in one of the most dangerous places on earth. He didn't know that the quiet college student had earned a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after years of dedicated training. Snake was about to learn all of these things the hard way. Snake pulled his fist back, ready to punch Marcus in the face as hard as he could. His brass knuckles caught the last bit of sunlight, looking like metal teeth ready to bite. The other bikers leaned forward, excited to see their leader beat up the college student. Some of them were already laughing, thinking about how they would tell this story later. But what happened next was not what anyone expected. Snake threw his punch, aiming right for Marcus's nose. It was a strong punch, meant to break bones and knock teeth out. But Marcus wasn't there anymore. In one smooth movement, he stepped to the side like water flowing around a rock. Snake's fist hit nothing but air. Before Snake could understand what had happened, Marcus grabbed the biker's wrist with both hands. Snake felt like his arm was caught in a steel trap. Marcus twisted Snake's arm and used the big man's own forward motion against him. It was like magic. 1 second Snake was throwing a punch, and the next second he was flying through the air. Snake hit the asphalt hard, landing on his back with a loud grunt. The wind got knocked out of his lungs, and his brass knuckles clattered across the parking lot. He lay there for a moment, staring up at the darkening sky, trying to figure out what had just happened to him. The other bikers stood frozen in shock. Their mouths hung open like fish out of water. They had expected to see Marcus on the ground, bleeding and begging for mercy. Instead, it was their leader lying on the concrete, looking confused and hurt. "What the hell?" said the tall biker with spider tattoos. He blinked several times, like he thought he might be dreaming. "How did you do that?" Marcus stood in the center of the circle, breathing calmly. His clothes weren't even wrinkled. He looked like he had just gently helped Snake lie down for a nap, instead of throwing a 250-pound man through the air. His feet were shoulder-width apart, his hands up in a relaxed defensive position. "I told you this didn't have to happen," Marcus said in the same quiet voice he had used before. "You can still walk away." The thin biker with the chain got angry. He didn't understand what had just happened, but he knew his leader was on the ground, and that made him look weak. "You got lucky, college boy," he shouted. "Let's see how lucky you are with this." He pulled out his heavy chain and started swinging it over his head like a cowboy with a rope. The chain made a whooshing sound as it cut through the air. The biker thought this would scare Marcus into backing down. After all, nobody wants to get hit with a metal chain. But Marcus just watched the chain spinning. His eyes followed its movement, calculating its speed and reach. He had seen plenty of weapons in Afghanistan: knives, guns, improvised clubs. A chain was just another tool that could hurt you if you didn't know how to deal with it. The biker with the chain charged forward, swinging his weapon down toward Marcus's head. It was a powerful swing that would have broken bones if it connected. But Marcus had already moved. He stepped inside the chain's reach, too close for the weapon to hit him properly. In less than a second, Marcus grabbed the biker's wrist and elbow. He twisted the man's arm in a way arms weren't meant to twist. The biker screamed and dropped the chain, which fell to the ground with a metallic clatter. Marcus pushed gently, and the biker stumbled backward. The man tripped over his own feet and crashed into the side of a parked car. He slumped down, holding his twisted arm and groaning in pain. Now 2 of the 5 bikers were down. Snake was still on his back, trying to catch his breath. The thin biker sat against the car, cradling his hurt arm. The remaining 3 bikers looked at Marcus with new eyes. This wasn't going the way they had planned at all. "Who are you?" asked the muscular biker with tree trunk arms. For the first time, there was fear in his voice. "You're not just some college kid." Marcus turned to face him. "I'm exactly what I said I was, a student trying to get to his car. But I'm also someone who knows how to defend himself." The muscular biker looked at his 2 friends who were still standing. The one with long, dirty hair was backing away slowly. The youngest biker looked like he wanted to run. Only the muscular biker still seemed ready to fight. "This ain't over," he growled, clenching his fists. Marcus sighed softly. "It could be. Right now, just help your friends and leave." But the muscular biker couldn't back down. His pride wouldn't let him. He had a reputation to protect. He charged forward like a bull, his big fists swinging wildly at Marcus's head. Marcus moved like he was dancing. The biker's punches looked slow and clumsy compared to Marcus's smooth movements. Marcus ducked under one punch, stepped around another, and then did something that looked almost gentle. He placed one hand on the charging biker's chest and used his hip as a pivot point. The big man went flying through the air in a perfect arc. He landed hard on his side, rolling several times before coming to a stop near the motorcycles. 3 down, 2 to go. The remaining bikers looked at their friends on the ground, then at Marcus, who still looked calm and controlled. They were starting to realize they had picked a fight with the wrong person. The 2 remaining bikers stared at Marcus with wide eyes. The one with long, dirty hair was sweating even though the evening was getting cool. The youngest biker kept looking back toward the motorcycles, like he was thinking about running away. Around them, their 3 friends groaned and tried to get back on their feet. Snake finally managed to sit up, shaking his head like he was trying to clear it. Blood trickled from a cut on his lip where he had bitten it when he hit the ground. The thin biker with spider tattoos was still holding his twisted arm, tears of pain streaming down his face. The muscular biker rolled onto his hands and knees, breathing hard and spitting dirt from his mouth. "This is impossible," Snake muttered, wiping blood from his chin. "Nobody moves that fast. Nobody." Marcus stood in the middle of the parking lot, completely calm. His backpack was still on his shoulders. His clothes were still neat and clean. It looked like he had just finished a gentle exercise instead of fighting 3 dangerous men. But now something was different about him. The other bikers could see it even if they couldn't name it. It was in the way Marcus held himself. Before, he had looked like a student trying to avoid trouble. Now he looked like what he really was, a trained warrior who could handle any threat. His shoulders were square, his stance was perfect, and his eyes were sharp and focused. "You want to know who I am?" Marcus asked in a voice that carried across the parking lot. "I'm someone who learned to fight in places where fighting meant staying alive. I'm someone who was trained by the best soldiers in the world." The biker with long dirty hair took another step backward. "You're military," he whispered. "Was," Marcus corrected. "Now I'm a student. But some things you never forget." Snake struggled to his feet, using a nearby car to pull himself up. His legs were shaky, but his pride wouldn't let him stay down. "I don't care if you're G.I. Joe himself," he snarled. "There's still 5 of us, and only 1 of you." 3.5, Marcus said, looking at the injured bikers. "Maybe 3. The youngest biker looked at Snake with fear in his eyes. "Boss, maybe we should just leave. This isn't what we signed up for." Snake turned on him with rage. "Shut up. Nobody runs from some college punk." But even as he said it, Snake knew his crew was falling apart. The thin biker could barely use his arm. The muscular biker was still on his hands and knees, trying to catch his breath. The 2 remaining bikers looked ready to bolt. "All together," Snake shouted. "Rush him all at once. He can't fight all of us." This was exactly what Marcus had been expecting. In his military training, He had learned that scared, angry people often made the worst decisions. They would attack together in a messy, unorganized way instead of being smart about it. The 5 bikers charged at Marcus from different directions. Snake came from the front, still dizzy but determined. The thin biker swung his good arm wildly. The muscular biker lumbered forward like a wounded bear. The one with long hair attacked from the left side. The youngest biker came from the right. But his heart wasn't in it. Marcus moved like he was dancing with invisible partners. He ducked under Snake's wild swing and stepped to the side. As Snake stumbled past him, Marcus gently pushed the back of Snake's neck, sending the leader crashing into the thin biker. Both men fell down in a heap. The muscular biker threw a punch that was so slow Marcus had time to catch his fist in his open palm. Marcus twisted the man's arm and used a simple jiu-jitsu technique to flip him over his shoulder. The big biker hit the ground so hard it shook the parked cars. The biker with long hair tried to grab Marcus from behind, but Marcus felt him coming. In one smooth movement, Marcus stepped forward and threw his hip back. The biker went flying over Marcus's shoulder and landed on top of the muscular biker in a pile of arms and legs. The youngest biker swung at Marcus's head, but there was no power behind it. Marcus caught his wrist gently and spun him around in a circle. The young man got dizzy and sat down hard on the asphalt, looking confused. In less than 30 seconds, all 5 bikers were on the ground again. This time, they stayed down. Some of them were hurt, some were exhausted, and all of them were scared. They had never seen anything like what they had just experienced. Marcus stood over them, not even breathing hard. His movements had been so smooth and effortless that it looked like he was barely trying. But the bikers could see the power behind those movements, the years of training and discipline that made them possible. Now, Marcus said in a calm voice, "Who wants to tell me what this was really about?" Snake looked up at Marcus with a mixture of fear and respect. For the first time since the confrontation began, the biker leader was completely quiet. He finally understood that he had picked a fight with someone far beyond his abilities. The parking lot fell silent except for the groans of injured bikers and the distant sound of traffic. Marcus waited patiently for someone to speak. He had all the time in the world. Snake sat on the cold asphalt, his back against the tire of a parked car. His whole body ached, and his pride hurt even more. Around him, his crew looked like they had been hit by a truck. The thin biker held his arm close to his chest, rocking back and forth in pain. The muscular biker lay flat on his back, staring at the sky with glassy eyes. The one with long hair sat in a daze, touching a growing bump on his forehead. The youngest biker had his head in his hands, probably wondering how he had gotten into this mess. Marcus stood a few feet away, still perfectly calm. His breathing was normal, like he had just taken a pleasant walk instead of fighting 5 men. But now there was something different in his eyes. Before, he had looked patient and peaceful. Now he looked alert and dangerous, like a guard dog that had been awakened. "You made a big mistake tonight," Marcus said, his voice quiet but carrying clearly in the still air. "You saw a black man with books and decided that made me an easy target. You thought you could intimidate me, hurt me, and I would just take it without fighting back." Snake tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He coughed and tried again. "We didn't know. We thought you were just..." "Just what?" Marcus asked, stepping closer. "Just another weak college kid you could push around. Just someone who wouldn't fight back because he was outnumbered." The youngest biker looked up with fear in his eyes. "Please, man. We're sorry. We didn't mean for this to happen." Marcus studied each of their faces. "Oh, but you did mean for this to happen. You meant to hurt someone tonight. You just picked the wrong person." Snake finally found his voice. "Look, we get it. You can fight. You proved your point. Can't we just call it even and go our separate ways?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "Even? You attacked me for no reason other than the color of my skin and the books in my bag. You threatened me with weapons. You tried to hurt me. And now you want to call it even." The thin biker with the spider tattoos winced as he tried to move his injured arm. "What do you want from us?" he asked through gritted teeth. Marcus reached into his pocket. All 5 bikers tensed up, afraid he was pulling out a weapon. But Marcus only took out his cell phone. "I want you to understand something," he said. "I could call the police right now. I could have all of you arrested for assault. You attacked me with weapons. You threatened me with violence. You used racist language." Snake's eyes went wide. "No, wait, don't call the cops. Please. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't," Marcus said, holding up his phone. The bikers looked at each other desperately. They knew they were in serious trouble. Assault charges would mean jail time. Some of them probably had criminal records already, which would make things even worse. Because Snake started, then stopped. He couldn't think of a good reason. Marcus looked at each of them carefully. "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan," he said. "I fought to protect people's freedom, including your freedom to ride your motorcycles and live your lives however you want. But freedom doesn't give you the right to hurt innocent people." The muscular biker finally sat up, holding his ribs. "You're military." "Marine," Marcus corrected. "And before you ask, yes, I know how to do a lot more damage than what I just did to you. What you experienced tonight was me holding back." The bikers exchanged worried glances. If this was Marcus holding back, they didn't want to know what he looked like when he wasn't. Snake pulled something out of his boot, a knife with a 4-inch blade. The other bikers gasped, and the youngest one shook his head frantically. "Snake, don't." The young biker pleaded. "Haven't we been hurt enough?" Marcus looked at the knife without fear. If anything, he looked disappointed. "Really? After everything that just happened, you're going to pull a knife on me?" Snake's hand shook as he held the weapon. "I can't let this stand. I can't let my crew see me get beaten by some college punk. I got a reputation to protect." "Your reputation is already gone," Marcus said calmly. "The only question now is whether you want to make this much worse for yourself." The knife caught the light from a nearby street lamp. Snake's crew watched in horror as their leader stood up slowly, the blade pointed at Marcus. They had all seen what Marcus could do with his bare hands. They didn't want to find out what would happen when he felt truly threatened. "Last warning," Snake said, trying to sound tough. "Back off, or I'll cut you." Marcus stood perfectly still. "You pull that knife on me, and I stop treating this like a misunderstanding between neighbors. You pull that knife on me, and I start treating you like an enemy combatant." The parking lot fell silent except for the sound of Snake's heavy breathing. His crew watched in fear as their leader made what might be the biggest mistake of his life. The knife trembled in Snake's hand as he decided what to do next. Snake held the knife in front of him like a shield. His hand was shaking so badly that the blade made small circles in the air. Sweat ran down his face, even though the evening had turned cool. His crew watched in horror, knowing their leader was about to make the worst mistake of his life. Marcus looked at the knife with the same calm expression he had worn all evening, but something had changed. The air around him felt different, like the moment before lightning strikes. He wasn't just a college student anymore, or even just someone who knew how to fight. He was a warrior who had been pushed too far. "You really want to do this?" Marcus asked in a voice so quiet that Snake had to lean forward to hear him. "You really want to pull a weapon on someone who spent 3 years fighting people who were trying to kill him every single day?" Snake tried to sound tough, but his voice cracked when he spoke. "I ain't afraid of you, college boy. I don't care what kind of karate you know." Marcus shook his head slowly. "It's not karate. And if you knew what I really learned in the Marines, you'd put that knife down right now and walk away." The thin biker with the spider tattoos spoke up, panic in his voice. "Snake, put the knife away. This guy isn't normal. Look what he did to all of us." But Snake's pride wouldn't let him back down. He had been the toughest guy in this town for 20 years. He couldn't let a college student make him look weak in front of his crew. "Shut up," he yelled at his friend. "I'm not backing down from nobody." Marcus moved so fast that nobody saw exactly what happened. 1 second Snake was holding the knife, ready to attack. The next second Snake was face down on the asphalt with Marcus's knee on his back. The knife was nowhere to be seen. Snake tried to move, but Marcus applied just enough pressure to keep him still. "Where's the knife?" Snake gasped, his face pressed against the rough asphalt. "Somewhere safe," Marcus said calmly. "Now listen to me very carefully. I learned to disarm people who were carrying knives, guns, bombs, and things that would give you nightmares. Taking that little blade away from you was easier than taking candy from a baby." The other bikers stared in amazement. They hadn't even seen Marcus move. One moment he was standing 5 feet away. The next moment their leader was pinned to the ground like a bug. "You're military." Snake wheezed from underneath Marcus's knee. It wasn't a question anymore. Nobody moved that fast or that smoothly without serious training. "United States Marine Corps," Marcus confirmed. "Served 3 tours in Afghanistan. I've been shot at by snipers, attacked by suicide bombers, and fought hand-to-hand with Taliban fighters who would make you look like a kindergarten student." Snake stopped struggling. The fight had gone out of him completely. "What rank?" "Sergeant," Marcus answered. "Infantry. And before you ask, yes, I saw real combat. More than I ever wanted to see." The muscular biker shook his head in disbelief. "No way. You're too young to be a veteran. You look like you're barely out of high school." Marcus looked at him with tired eyes. "I enlisted when I was 18. Did 3 tours back-to-back because I believed in the mission. Came home when I was 24 and decided I wanted to build things instead of destroying them. That's why I'm studying engineering." The youngest biker found his voice. "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you say you were a Marine? Would it have mattered?" Marcus asked. "You attacked me because of how I looked, not because of what I had done. And besides, I shouldn't have to prove I'm a veteran to earn basic respect." Snake coughed and spoke from his position on the ground. "Let me up, please. We get it now. We understand." Marcus considered this for a moment. "Do you? Do you really understand what happened here tonight?" "Yeah," Snake said quietly. "We picked a fight with the wrong guy." Marcus shook his head. "No, that's not what happened. You picked a fight with an innocent person who was just trying to go to his car. The fact that I can defend myself doesn't make what you did okay." The thin biker winced as he shifted his injured arm. "What do you want from us?" Marcus looked around at all of them. 5 grown men who had learned a lesson they would never forget. "I want you to think about this night every time you see someone who looks different from you. I want you to remember that you never know who you're dealing with. And I want you to ask yourselves if this is really the kind of men you want to be." Snake nodded as best he could with his face against the asphalt. We'll remember." Marcus slowly released the pressure and stood up. Snake rolled over and sat up slowly, touching his face where the concrete had scraped his cheek. All 5 bikers looked at Marcus with new eyes filled with respect, fear, and understanding. "One more thing," Marcus said. "I earned my black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu while I was in the Marines. What you saw tonight was me being gentle. Next time you think about attacking someone, remember that." The bikers sat in silence, absorbing what Marcus had told them. They had thought they were tough guys who could intimidate anyone. Now they knew they had just met someone who was in a completely different league. The parking lot was quiet except for the sound of distant traffic and the heavy breathing of 5 beaten bikers. Snake sat on the asphalt, holding his scraped face and looking up at Marcus, with eyes that held fear, respect, and something else, shame. His crew gathered around him, helping each other stand up and check their injuries. Marcus reached into his backpack and pulled out a small first aid kit. The bikers watched in surprise as he walked over to the thin biker with spider tattoos. "Let me look at that arm," Marcus said. The biker hesitated, then slowly extended his injured arm. Marcus examined it gently, his fingers moving like a doctor's. "It's not broken," he said, "just badly twisted. You'll be sore for a few days, but nothing permanent." "Why are you helping us?" the thin biker asked, confused. "We tried to hurt you." Marcus wrapped the man's wrist with an elastic bandage from his kit. "Because that's what you do when someone is hurt, even if they were your enemy 5 minutes ago." Snake struggled to his feet, using the car bumper to pull himself up. "I don't understand you, Marine. We attacked you. We called you names. We threatened you with weapons. And now you're giving us medical help." Marcus finished with the bandage and stood up. "That's the difference between us. You attacked someone because you didn't like how he looked. I help people because it's the right thing to do." The muscular biker rubbed his ribs where he had landed hard. "We're sorry," he said quietly. "We really are sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix what you did," Marcus replied. "But it's a start." The youngest biker looked around at his injured friends, then back at Marcus. "What happens now? Are you going to call the police?" Marcus considered this question while he packed up his first aid kit. "That depends on you. What are you going to do when you leave here tonight?" Snake spat blood onto the asphalt and wiped his mouth. "What do you mean? Are you going to go home and think about what happened here? Are you going to change how you treat people? Or are you going to get angry and look for someone weaker to take it out on?" The bikers looked at each other. The one with long dirty hair spoke first. "I never want to go through anything like this again. I thought I was tough, but you made me feel like a little kid." "Good," Marcus said. "Maybe now you'll think twice before you bully someone who can't defend themselves." Snake ran his hand through his gray hair, wincing as he touched a sore spot on his scalp. "Can I ask you something, Marine?" "Marcus," he corrected. "My name is Marcus." "Marcus," Snake repeated. "Why didn't you just finish us? You could have hurt us a lot worse. You could have made sure we never bothered anyone again." Marcus looked at each of the bikers carefully. "Because I'm not you. I don't hurt people for fun. I only fight when I have to, and I only use as much force as necessary to stop the threat." The thin biker shook his head in amazement. "In the bar, guys talk about what they'd do if they had skills like yours. Most of them say they'd make sure anyone who messed with them would regret it forever." "Most people who talk like that have never been in a real fight," Marcus said. "They've never seen what violence actually does to people. I have. That's why I came home and decided to build things instead of breaking them." Snake took a deep breath and looked Marcus in the eye. "You've got our word. We won't bother you again. And we won't bother any other students on this campus." "I appreciate that," Marcus said. "But I want more than your word about me. I want you to think about all the other people you might meet who look different from you. The next person might not be able to defend themselves the way I can." The muscular biker nodded slowly. "You're right. We were wrong. About you. About everything." Marcus walked over to his car and opened the door. "There's something else I want you to remember. I didn't become dangerous because I learned to fight. I learned to fight because there are dangerous people in the world who hurt innocent people. Tonight, you were those dangerous people." The bikers stood in silence as Marcus got into his Honda Civic. Snake called out just before Marcus closed the door. "Marcus, what you said about building instead of destroying. What are you building?" Marcus rolled down his window. "Bridges," he said. "I'm going to design bridges that bring people together instead of keeping them apart." He started his car and drove slowly toward the parking lot exit. The bikers watched him go, moving aside to let him pass. As his taillights disappeared into the night, they stood looking at each other and at the motorcycles that had brought them here. Snake picked up his knife from where Marcus had dropped it near the motorcycles. He looked at it for a long moment, then walked over to a trash can and threw it away. "Come on," he said to his crew. "Let's go home." One by one, the bikers climbed onto their motorcycles. Their engines roared to life, But somehow the sound seemed smaller now, less threatening. As they rode out of the parking lot, they carried with them a lesson they would never forget. The next morning, Marcus would be back in the library, sitting in his usual corner, working on his engineering homework. But tonight had changed something. He had been reminded that his past as a Marine would always be part of him, ready to emerge when innocent people needed protection. The parking lot fell silent under the stars. The confrontation was over, but its lessons would last a lifetime.